Hey everybody, welcome back to H4G's Retro Tech Pickups. I'm Tony.
And I'm John.
Today is all about the PVM. Now, if you've watched this sub-series before, you know that John has been on a mystic quest.
A crusade,
if you will, to find a professional video monitor.
Mm-hmm. And I finally, at long last, found one. Surprisingly, got a good deal, even in Detroit, on Craigslist. Apparently the reason is a lot of old AV edit units are being converted to servers, which use pretty much the same rack space and rack type. So these things have been getting chucked in the garbage in the area, but some guy has been going around buying and refurbishing and reselling them on Craigslist. And I got a great deal from him. Great guy. Name's John. Just like this John.
I don't believe that.
Too many Johns.
Seems too much like a coincidence.
Yes.
To me. However, what you mentioned about these things being just chucked in the garbage, that is a common theme with the Retro Tech Pickups episodes because there's so much stuff that we find collectible that the average person at whatever business is just like, toss it.
Yeah.
We don't need it.
I mean, if you look at these not knowing what they are, you go like, it's a medical monitor? What the hell? It's only got one speaker. You look at the back. It's got these weird connectors the average person has never seen in their life. And they go like, who's going to want a standard definition, like, 40-pound TV today?
All right, so let's go ahead and clarify. What exactly is a PVM? What does that stand for? Is it just a nice CRT television? Like, what is it?
You basically could just say it is a really nice TV. Because these Sonys are a nice aperture grill, but they have so many more TV lines. So when you look at your old TV and you sit real close up to it, you'd notice the colors separate into those lines that are the phosphors. Well, in this one, you have to actually get quite close in there to notice that. So sitting like here, you can't notice them separate. And you can feed in those nice RGB and component and S-video and composite if you were a masochist.
Sure.
So you get a wide range of video inputs. You get some nice little settings here. And check this out. DGOS!
DGOS up in here!
Yeah. But,
hey, thumbs up for DGOS.
Yeah, smash that like button. The idea was these things were built to run for very long lengths of time. They were basically workhorses that should have nice, good picture quality.
Okay.
This one being a medical grade, you can see that it was owned by Images or National MD. There's a whole bunch of stickers over the companies that owned it for a while. But the running joke on a lot of CRT collection boards are that, well, the medical grades tend to have a lot less hours on them, which is very important. The joke is how long until somebody finds one with a burn-in for a colonoscopy. And that is actually a common joke, but it has extra shielding. I believe there is some extra splash guarding on here. You can get it for the vents if you're a crazy person. But yeah, it is just a really nice standard definition TV.
So speaking of colonoscopy, if you've ever played the game Microcosm for the Sega CD or like 3DO, I think it was also a PC game. Basically, you're like going through somebody's like tissue and veins, and it just looks like a colonoscopy. I'll have to get some footage. I think I have it for the Sega CD, but it's just you're like going through, and it's just like looks through like you're going through some like intestines, basically.
We're getting deep with this analysis.
Yes. What era were these used during? Because I remember when I went to U of M, we had editing suites, and I don't know if they were PVMs, but they had something.
They probably were.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a little bit smaller, but we used them for color correction specifically, but not anymore, though.
They made these things everywhere from 4 inches up to, there's an NEC XM that's 37 inches.
Okay, so when are these still utilized? Professionally, or are they kind of being phased out?
People,
or what?
We're at like the absolute end.
I'd be working at the U of M like workstations, and it was just when they were getting HD television. So we had like a nice iMac monitor, and then above it was like this HD TV, but like the viewing angle wasn't right. If you remember when viewing angles could be bad in like earlier HD TVs, and then you'd have your, I guess what was probably a PVM next to you, and you'd like connect it to the HD TV, and even when you got the right viewing angle, like you'd have to like
you'd get that little purplish color.
Yeah, it was off. Like I remember always utilizing. I didn't know they were PVMs, but the PVM for the proper color calibration, essentially.
That's a very nice thing about CRTs, especially for live editing. Like if you go back and watch one of my favorite Christmas movies, Scrooged, there's the scene where Bobcat Goldthwait runs in with a shotgun in the edit unit, and he's like telling him, like, you cut to that camera, cut. And if you look, you will notice they're all little black PVMs.
Yeah.
Because anywhere you were sitting in that entire thing, the color was correct on all of them.
Yeah.
There wasn't viewing angle. There wasn't, okay, let me, hang on. Okay, that looks good.
So these were used in broadcast a lot, too. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Okay. To that point regarding quality, John has a modded SNES Junior up here, and you have some component cables coming out of it too.
Yeah, so I have the nice Voltar's, what is it, TH7374 mod chip coming out of there, to some HD Retrovision cables. So this is pretty much as far as you can take Super Nintendo hardware, outside of maybe a side grade SCART cable at that point. And then it's fed down to this PVM, which the sky can be the limit on price you can spend on those.
But aside from getting a higher quality PVM, essentially we've maxed out the visuals for Turtles in Time.
Yeah, you can't really go much further.
So essentially a PVM is the best possible way to showcase your retro games, considering the televisions they were originally designed for.
There's a little bit of like the glow and bloom that goes on in there that, like, I feel HD TVs, they either do a blurring effect and they're a little overboard on that, or they do way too sharp of an image.
Okay.
The one thing I will say is, especially if you're playing games from the 480i, 480p transitional period, looking into some of the professional video monitors that did 480p, that might be a good idea for you if you're a huge purist, because most consumer TVs they brought out at the time would simply upscale everything, which you can get a little bit of input lag, or some artifacts and stuff like that, stripped sprites and such. Whereas these would just do exactly as you told them. If you gave it a progressive signal, it would print a progressive signal.
Yeah.
If you gave it interlaced, it would do interlaced.
Yeah.
It didn't do any of this. All right, well, I gave you that, but let me have a go first.
Yeah. So essentially, another point regarding the quality is that it understood what you were giving it.
Yes.
But let's transition from there into price range. How much did you pay for yours again?
So this is a PVM-1953MD. It's a 19-inch PVM, and I paid $200 cash.
Okay, so what is the price range that you've seen, and what does that mean in terms of the quality of the unit? What is the difference between, like, whatever you have compared to, like, a really, really expensive one?
Okay, so there are a couple of things to look for. Figure out what size you really want. The difference between a 14 and a 19 and a 20 really isn't quite as huge as you'd think. A 19 or a 20, they're nice. But more than anything, look up TV lines and look up if it has any built-in filtering. Some of the BVMs even had a little thing where you could pull it out, and there were further controls where you could turn on certain filters and improve different video signals, and you could change all these settings and stuff. I've seen JVC ones that had like a full joystick and menus and stuff like that. Yeah, they're badass. But really, look around, figure out how many TV lines you want. If you know some people who have them, take a look at that. I think mine is a 600 TV line.
Let's pause for just a second there, because for the layperson, what does that mean, resolution? What is a TV line?
Okay, so resolution in standard definition games was really weird.
Okay.
Because for the longest time, they all just used 240p, occasionally 480i.
Yeah.
So modern resolution, we think length and height. In these games, it was all just length.
Okay.
And so potentially if you have a cheap enough, curbside pickup TV, you might not actually notice the increase of graphics from, say, the Genesis to the 32X. Because that's literally just getting lost in the gaps.
Yeah.
But 600 TV lines means that you've got significantly more phosphors in here. If I were to bring in my consumer grade Trinitron that's in the other room, you'd be able to, when you lean in, go like, oh yeah, I can see gaps in there. And sitting too close to that thing, it starts to just look like trash. But
it's trash.
I wanted something I could put on my desk, and I could sit about here from it. And I found that I believe 600 that this thing has was good.
Let's say that you spend like $1,000 on a PVM. Essentially what you're going to get is a good amount of TV lines, bigger screen size, and more inputs in the back.
Well, you could potentially get better quality phosphors.
Okay.
Now, these phosphors aren't bad, but as you've noticed, like if I turn it off, you can see a lot of light reflecting off of them. It's very gray there. So when you're projecting on something, the darkest something can be is the background light that's on it. So that's why a movie theater is dark.
Okay.
In regards to phosphors, later ones had, I believe they were called tinted phosphors. And if I turn this off again, you'd notice that they were much closer to like the black on there, because there's actually some pigment in them. There were also ones that were SMPTE, the Society of Motion Picture Technology and Engineering, I think.
Okay.
Calibrated ones, and those were the ones that were actually used for like color calibration for TV shows and movies and such. And those are the ones you really, really want, because those will have the best picture.
So what would that cost you if you're going for something like that?
A 20-inch with those nice SMPTE phosphors. Ooh, I usually see those going for usually over like $800.
Really? Okay.
There's so many revisions and so many of these damn things. It's like anybody who's a Porsche fanatic, ask them about how confusing the 911 is. Or if you want to talk to conspiracy theorists.
Hang on, we're not going there. So tell me a little bit about what hookups this thing has.
So it has, if you take a look, follow me down here. And now everybody can make fun of how short I am. You'll see there's line A, which does composite.
Okay.
B does YC, which is, we would know as S-video. And then there's RGB/component A and B, which I can click through or do a split screen. And in the menu, fancy, config, you can see I can go, no, I don't want to do, let's see, RGBA. You can see that I can do an RGB internal, which tries to find the sync somewhere on one of the lines. I believe like sync on Luma would be an example of that. RGB external, which would be RGBS, where you have the extra line. Component internal, which would pull it from the Y channel. And then component external, which you could then just plug in, say like a composite video signal, plug that in, bam, it would understand it as the sync signal. But yeah, it takes a whole bunch of different things. The big frustration is that those RCA hookups, the little... I think some people called them Rhino plugs back in the day. They don't directly hook onto this. You actually have to buy what's called a BNC to RCA adapter if you want to use those. Or just buy cables that terminate in a BNC. Which is like a little bayonet lug that you click on there.
So if you're watching this video, you either have maybe a curiosity or a thirst for good video quality.
They're on YouTube. They're thirsty.
They're thirsty. So that said, I mean, maybe you want to go out and get one. But let's say someone doesn't want to necessarily spend the money on a PVM or a BVM or what have you. Are there any good CRT televisions that are high quality that you would recommend that maybe wouldn't quite be as good, but would be good enough?
Well, one thing I would recommend is, before giving up on a professional grade, try looking up JVCs or Ikagamis or Barcos. There was also an Olympus brand, which was actually just a Sony PVM that just had an Olympus sticker down here. And that's the only difference.
Are those cheaper?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because on eBay and these various places, if it says Sony PVM, that's what somebody searched for.
Yeah.
But you can get a lot of those off-brand, a lot of those are still very high-quality manufacturers for reasonable prices, but just because it didn't have that SEO name.
Yeah.
Think of it like, you want to play an RPG on the Super Nintendo, and you don't want to spend a lot of money? Don't search Earthbound.
That's a good analogy. As a matter of fact. Okay, so what about some consumer grade CRTs? Do you have any recommendations for those?
I mean, if you, in the spring, once you start noticing your neighbors cleaning out the garage, just drive around a few neighborhoods every once in a while. Chances are you can find a really nice Sony Trinitron that's from later in the era. But I believe it was in the 90s, the aperture grill technology, which actually was what the Trinitron was, that eventually became, I think they lost their exclusivity to the patent or something like that. And so all the other manufacturers who'd been making shadow masks, which aren't bad, but I'd say an aperture grill is better, they started making them, and I believe JVC and Mitsubishi and Sharp and a couple of other companies made some pretty good ones, but you're probably not going to find a bad TV if it says Sony on it.
Okay.
But the one thing is that you may find a TV that has bad capacitors.
Okay.
Because it might have been stored in the garage for ages, or it might have just been run until the end of time.
Is there any way to tell that by turning it on?
If you turn it on and feed it some test signals and stuff like that, some things will become more apparent.
Okay.
But you'll notice noise, you'll notice things like fidgeting around,
maybe buzzing
dithering,
noise,
buzzing, stuff like
kind
that.
of stuff. Okay. Generally, when I'm looking for CRTs for you, when I'm looking at thrift stores and such, I want to make sure that it's a Sony. I want to make sure that it has component.
Yeah.
I feel like that. Obviously, if it has component, doesn't mean that it's an amazing TV. But having that ability to upgrade from composite to component, I feel is important if you're interested in CRT, in quote old school video quality. So that is our PVM episode. I'm glad that you finally found and birthed your baby boy here, or girl, whatever. I don't know its name. But
I don't think they have genders, to be honest. I think they're TVs.
Very progressive. That said, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you guys on the next video. Thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and a share, and we will see you guys next time.